Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement in lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Ruby Powers, thank you for joining Lawyers Who Learn. I'm really excited to talk to you. When I started doing my research for this podcast by watching other podcasts that you had, including Lawline courses, it reinforced the reason why I have this podcast. It's to talk to people like you and to get inspired by people like you. So I'm really excited to share some of your inspiration with those who are going to watch this.
Thanks, David. And it's fascinating that I think I've been teaching with Lawline over the past 15 or something years, and that I feel like this is the first time we might have met at an ABA Tech show, I think, but this is our first time we're really like sitting down and talking.
And that's amazing. And part of the reason why I'm doing a podcast, and there's so much to uncover here, but let's start with the most important question.
What's that?
Ruby Powers is like the best name I've ever heard. And I'm just curious, has that been like a superpower to you? You're like having Powers your last name? Tell me about that. And then we'll get into the more serious topics. But I've always loved your name and admired it. And I was just curious about it.
Oh, it's great. I got it after getting married. It's fun. Usually people can spell it, and having my maiden name be Lichty, which is confusing, but that's my middle name. But Powers, I think my only restriction is that I couldn't name my kid Austin. Other than that, the sky's the limit.
Fair enough. Okay. So it's later in life, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So there's so much that you have done and do, and there's so many parallels between the two of us, actually, except you're like here and I'm here because you're also actually practicing law. And many times when I watch interviews, and I've watched yours, for me, one of the purposes is to learn something new, because even though there's a lot of things to share, but I'm just going to do a quick, very short recap of some of the things that I've learned about you. You've lived in 6 countries, including in Barcelona, where you went to school, where I lived for 2 years as well. I'm not sure if you know that. You lived in also Missouri, Texas, and other states, I think, as well.
Maryland and North Carolina.
You got into immigration originally because of a story with your mom, who was born in Mexico. Oh man, I'm going to mess this one up. But it was unclear about her citizenship and so you went through that process, and you've written 2 books.
Yeah.
I'm working on my 2nd book now. I can relate to that process. We'll talk about that. You have 12 programs currently live, maybe 13 programs currently live on Lawline, and you have a podcast called the Power Up Podcast, and you're running an immigration firm as well as a law practice management firm. So I think that sums up a little bit of what you're doing right now. And one of the things, does that sound about right?
That's a really good summary. Yeah. And I'll just do a plug for ABA Tech Show because it's right around the corner. And I'm on the board of that, and just really excited about just staying in that legal tech space and meeting lots of cool people. I think that's the first time I actually met you in person too. So.
Yeah, totally. And I'm really trying to get there this year as well, trying to coordinate schedules. And the tech show, this will be live before that. One of the things, this is Lawyers Who Learn. And one of the things that resonated with me with what you said, which I want to dive into during this episode, and we'll see where else we go, is 3 words that you mentioned in a previous interview. What gives you energy is thinking, learning, and teaching. And if you could go somewhere and spend all day thinking and learning and then teaching, like that would be your happy place. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I remember saying that. I'm trying to remember which podcast I said that.
It was Lawyers Toolbox.
Okay.
Toolbox.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, if I just had enough resources to just that's what I'm building myself up to. I love that. And sharing ideas. I guess that's teaching, but I have all these books surrounded by me, and I carry them around. Okay, if I had that one moment, I'm going to read it. I'm such an optimist about that.
Those are essentially, when I read that, I'm like, that's who I am. And if it's a struggle, and I think maybe this sort of can relate to you, because I could spend all my time thinking and learning. If I wanted to, that would be my happy place. But you get to a point where you realize I need to force myself to actually network. And so let me start a podcast. So I speak to amazing people like you, because that's part of building relationships as part of the learning. But like for me, I'm always overwhelmed by the amount of opportunities there are to find that quiet space in the back there and read a book or a podcast, or kind of put that. And that's where I get a lot of my energy from. And so I wanted to maybe use that as the theme of this episode a little bit, and see how that's gone through. I don't know, from starting the immigration firm to now starting the law practice management firm, and writing the books. So let me ask you this. Is there any question, because you speak a lot, is there anything that, and you write books, that you wish you were talked about more, that you don't get a chance to talk about, where you wish somebody asked you about that, or you can really focus on that topic before we just go down this interview and where it ends up?
That's a good question. I can't think of the answer off the top of my head, but I do think that we need to be continuously learning that concept of Kaizen. And one thing I do see with lawyers is that, and law firm owners, and just, it doesn't have to be law firm owners necessarily, but we get into good law school, we pass the bar, we get a job, and then we're on autopilot. I don't think it's just lawyers, I think just grown-up people in general. And it's important to reevaluate your goals and constantly grow and develop. And so that's where I like all of the reading that I'm doing. And I'll have my themes. I know Bo was on your podcast and he's been on mine, and he's talked about how he has his themes by the quarter. I don't have quarters. I usually just have themes that I get a little bored after the topic after a while. And after I start seeing the same theme, the same message over and over again, I'm like, okay, I've got this. And then I'll move on to a different topic. But just the constantly, we need to keep learning. And just because we pass law school doesn't mean that we have everything figured out. I think that's one of them. And the other thing I see just in general, that if we all were to learn how to be better delegating and management, I think we'd be able to accomplish a lot more. And just also just general time management as well. But we can
Okay.
talk
No,
about whatever you
cool.
want.
Awesome. So I do want, if I could, just to make sure I understand it fully, because you truly are an amazing person. And I hope I do it justice to understand how that works a little bit. So we'll see where you end up in an hour or 45 minutes. But just if you could just share us a little bit about the origin story of the immigration firm, so we can, just so I can make sure I understand that fully.
Yeah, so my mom was born to American missionaries in Mexico, so her first language was Spanish. She even was like the president of her like student council of her high school in Mexico, in Saltillo, which is near Monterrey. And so she's culturally Mexican, just born in Mexico, and then she later came to the US and met my dad, and the rest is history. But because I spent summers in Mexico, I saw a huge difference between Texas and Mexico, and my cousins were Mexican and actually also Venezuelan. And so I had a lot of cultural experiences, and just realizing that the world could be so different outside of your bubble. And when a combination of just having so much interest in helping those in need, from having a very humanitarian perspective from my grandparents, to an interest in human rights and international relations. It just all came together. And having lived and traveled to other countries, wanting to be an immigration attorney, it was a way I could give back here in the United States, be here, but every day is like living in another country, working with my clients and helping them navigate immigration law. And that's pretty much how it came about. And then when I later lived abroad and then met my husband, who's originally from Turkey, it just all came together constantly. Every place I've gone and lived abroad, you see the world from, have that empathy for my immigrant client, and just giving back to them, and making sure that they have a voice and help navigate the complexities of immigration law and policy in the United States.
You have so many different things that like intersect at the same time. It's like your family's history, the living abroad in Dubai, in Mexico and Belgium, in Barcelona. I think there might be another country there. You also mentioned,
yeah,
Turkey, maybe you said?
Turkey.
Yeah. You also mentioned in an earlier interview that you were laid off twice in 2008 during the
2009.
meltdown.
Yeah, after graduating
after the
2008. Yeah.
After graduating. And so like, it seems like, okay, there's all this. And then what was the like aha moment? Like, all right, I'm going to start my own shingle, and I guess I'll focus on immigration law because I'm passionate about that.
I always had been doing work in immigration as far as going working at the International Student Office in 2001 during 9/11 at UT. And so that gave me my first exposure besides my family perspective. And then I worked for the Committee on Homeland Security in DC. So I already like saying I practiced 16 years of immigration, that's like just after being a lawyer, but I did a lot of it pre-law in my internships and my jobs before I became a lawyer. But then the entrepreneur spirit was already in me and wanting to have my own business. I was happy when I got laid off the second time because I was like, okay, great, now I get to go start my firm. In between, my husband was like, no, we need to buy a house. We need to be responsible. And I was like, oh, okay. But I want to embrace this risk and start my own firm.
All right. So
So,
that was 2009
yeah, during the Great Recession.
and it's 2025.
I
So
know.
just tell me just what's the journey like? I want to understand what your firm, how it
So I,
started, how it evolved, and just so we can understand how you've learned
yeah,
along the way.
I put a lot of that in my books, so that's good, documented that.
It's always good, right? Because then you
Yeah,
say, oh, chapter
so
3,
you
here's
don't
what I did.
forget.
This
But
is your first, wait, which you have two books. This is the first book you're talking about?
both of them have a lot of information about it. My second one, Power Up Your Practice, which is available on Amazon, has 25 chapters and a lot of my little interspersed sections of stories of sharing everything from like operations to HR to technology, marketing, digital marketing, buying a building, partnership track, all of that fun stuff. It was a great exercise because it helped me put the lessons I learned so I can remember those lessons, but by helping others by sharing that. And then I also teach law practice management at a law school, so that keeps this content alive. But the short version of it, I started, and about 6 months into it, I got an assistant part-time, and then we kept growing. And then somewhere around there, I had a kid, and I moved abroad to Dubai, kept it growing, hired more people. I was gone, came back, kept growing and had another kid, and we kept growing and expanding different services within immigration. And then we've just been continuously improving and growing. And now we have around 20 or so staff or more staff members. It's very hybrid. There's some attorneys and assistants and people in other countries or states. We really embrace that concept. When I ran the law firm in Dubai in 2011, 12, if your team members could be anywhere in the world, that was very avant-garde and unique back then, but now it's pretty commonplace after the pandemic. Then really that huge paradigm shift, the sky's the limit in terms of how you can run your firm. And that's really just, I kept that way of thinking all throughout the firm. And that's really allowed me to be limber and expand and adapt and leverage technology along the way.
All through this time and up until today, you've been a teacher all along. You from teaching courses at Lawline to professor at school to writing the books, and I'm sure there's many more examples of that. Let's start with the books for a second. And also now you have entire brand. I don't know when you started that, but it's maybe when you launched the book, but to help law practice management and help people run their websites. I can relate to what you said about writing a book. So I wrote a book similar. I don't know if it's called The Fast Forward Mindset in 2019. And it was all about the first like 10 years of Lawline and all the mistakes that I made trying to build it and all the books that I read to help me through that. It sounds very similar to what you did with building a law
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to read that. That's because my first book came out in 2019 as well. So they were like
That's what
living parallel lives.
but
And we
I'm
were trying
telling
to
you,
connecting.
you are. I'm in the process of writing my second book right now, and it looks like you just finished yours, and it is the most painful yet therapeutic. I think and maybe you said this too, but it's like therapy and meditation and deep thinking. And okay, not a lot of people are not as many people as I want are going to end up reading it, but at least I'm getting the value out of processing and putting it together, and it will lead to other things. Can you relate to
Yeah,
that?
no, I do. And in fact, like it just like by teaching, we're learning and we have to really be able to master the concept. And I think a whole other aspect is like when you're teaching, you have to also keep people engaged because if you're not engaging they're not going to really retain But in terms of the writing the book, like it's a combination of, you have to know how to structure it, you need to know what will be interesting, you have to know the content well, and you know how to present that content. And so it's a lot of work. And then you have to have that quiet time to just sit down and work on it. And one of the books that really helped me the most was when I read Deep Work, and that book really helped me write my first one, and then helped me teach me a lot of best practices for staying focused and being able to accomplish a lot. But yeah, it's fun. And in fact, when I was like getting to the end of turning in the second one, I was like, okay, Ruby, you cannot read any more books. Like I was putting myself on like a reading diet. Like I was like, no, because you can't have any more ideas. You have to just encapsulate the ones you already have and punto, finish, you know?
It's interesting. Deep Work was a great book. I really resonated with that. I also resonated with Procrastinate on Purpose, which
Oh,
because
uh-huh.
I always
never
thought that
read
was
that.
I
Yeah.
always thought it was a bad thing, but it turns out it's my superpower because it's like when you wait till the last minute, you're combining all these different factors that allows you to do your best work when you put it out there.
Well, that's funny because I get in trouble when I turn in my PowerPoints to you guys at the last minute and they don't listen to that when we're editing.
For accreditation rules, yeah, whatever. But look, I get in trouble all the time with the team. I've been listening to my podcast. I don't know if you listen to yours often, and I just said I say that way too often. Do you ever listen to yours?
I do sometimes, but I just did it. I think that I do every once in a while, but I'm also I was listening to several of yours before today. And so a lot of times I already was there. I talked during it. So I remember, but sometimes I'll go back and listen to someone that I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. And I'm like, oh, that was a really good message.
It's a painful process to
it
listen
is.
to
Yeah.
interviews,
Listen
but
to yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
it's really interesting, especially at 1.5 times speed. But
Yeah.
as you're writing the book, why did you write your first book?
Well, it was simple. I saw my dad and other business owners like reinvent the wheel, and I was like, why doesn't someone just write this stuff down and maybe people can at least gauge enough that they don't have to reinvent the wheel? And again, I know you need to learn some of it on your own the hard way.
What's the title of it?
Build and manage your successful immigration law practice without losing your mind.
Okay, so specifically,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
specifically to immigration.
Yeah, but what I realized as I was teaching from it for my law practice management course and I talked to others, if you were to take immigration out of the title, even if you took the law firm aspect, it was really written to almost any professional service industry business
Sure.
to benefit. And the same with my second one, you could say the same, but the second one has five more it's a different book and it has five new chapters that were completely not anywhere in the first one, and just a lot more experience, and it's targeted more for all lawyers, no particular practice area.
So it's interesting because like riches and the niches, right? So the first one, you're like, I'm an expert in immigration. There's, I don't know, you probably know better than me how many immigration attorneys there are. The
I
number?
mean, Ayla is the one that published it, and they have about 17,000 members, but there's a lot of other immigration attorneys that are not Ayla members as well. So
certainly, and we're dealing like we've been teaching and sharing knowledge for between when my dad started and when I restarted it, 25 years, almost 10 million hours of CLE content. And
wow.
But on a personal level, I was in Barcelona because I was actually I was teaching a 2-day workshop to 120 YPO members, which I was not paid for. I did it because of the power of teaching and sharing and the learning and the networking and putting that out there the same way you do all those types of things. And, those things are the things that we were talking about. A book before we went on air, before we started recording, called How Full Is Your Bucket? And you heard me say that in a podcast. And I was like, let's wait till the podcast because I'll tell you what it is. And here's what I love about that book. And I'm going to ask you, it's how to fill somebody else's bucket. And it was originally written for children, and then it was turned into business. So I'm going to ask you, if you wanted to fill my bucket, no, let me switch it this way. What is the best way to fill your bucket? So it's either to fill your bucket, to give someone energy, to give yourself energy, or to take away energy. That's what it's about.
Oh,
What's the best way to fill your bucket to give yourself energy?
This morning I did some Reiki and meditation, and I went on a walk. So I
Yeah.
think that would be for me, and also just probably reading and just not doing my normal day-to-day type of thing, just to get a little bit of a break. That would
By the
probably.
way, I love your references to Kaizen. I'm a big fan. There's also two other things. There's, oh man, I'm forgetting right now, but there's a lot of really great Japanese cultures about living your purpose and fulfilling yourself, and meditation. And those are really great. Like those are the thinking things, right? And
Mhm.
this book is really about with other people. And what it focuses on in the book, it says, if you want to, like, generally, how do you fill someone else's bucket? It's generally when you are going to say to somebody, when you start off an interview and say, wow, like you are one of the most accomplished people that I've seen, and you're writing books and you have an immigration firm, and like you have so much energy, and I wish I could be like you. And if those come from real trust and respect, and they're not just saying that, the whole concept of filling your bucket is by filling someone else's bucket. Because 2 seconds before I actually say that to you, I know I'm going to say that to you, and I get energy in doing that. And so one technique that I read in a different book to help fill someone's bucket is, when I was a leader here in Lawline, I used to put a pennies in my right pocket. And if I wanted to, I'd have to give 5 compliments by the end of the day. And every compliment I would give, I would put the penny in the left pocket. And I knew I
Oh,
was just doing that to go through that, but I was getting so much energy from filling other people's buckets. So,
I love that. I really do, and
and now you
s
don't have to read the
s
book.
I think because right before we started recording, I actually was trying to get rid of all my tabs, and one of them was that book on Amazon. I was like, "Oh, a note to self, I need to buy that or put it on my list." But I do think that depending on your culture or your upbringing, you might not be. I don't think I was complimented a lot. I'll just say about myself. And so then I don't think I actually compliment a lot of people because it's not, it feels a little weird for me. But I'm trying really hard to do it more. And I loved what you're saying, and that culture. It almost reminds me of the gratitude practice, like the being thinking about the positive. It'll make you more positive, it'll make you happier. And if you're filling someone's bucket with the positive, then it's gonna be infectious, and you're gonna feel good about it too.
And of course, as a networker, you're doing it all the time as you network, because that's where you get energy by being. I'm sure you're doing that on a daily basis when you're at different events. But yeah, it is interesting, and it does take effort, and it's not necessarily natural, because I don't know if you. There's the other side of the conversation, which is like, there's 2 books out there: Crucial Conversations and Radical Candor. Do you know
Mhm.
those books? And
Yeah, I got the fierce one, the radical. There's a
fear,
couple
yeah,
that the
yeah.
titles are, like, so similar, and I have a lot of them. I haven't read them all, but
No, and that's why I bring it up, because me and you are self-help junkies in a way. At
yeah.
least we're not shelf-help junkies. A,
What is that?
a shelf-help junkie is somebody
Oh,
who
it just
they read the book, but they don't do
uh-huh.
anything. They don't do anything with the
Oh,
information.
that'd be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the best way, the best first way, is to see, what is it called? Watch, try, teach,
Hmm.
something like that.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
that's your philosophy, right? You learn something, and then when I have something, and I think you're the same way, when you've learned it, and you're like, oh my God, this is helping me, I need to share this with somebody else. Like, I cannot be happy until
yeah.
other people can start their own immigration firm the way I have, because you shouldn't have to suffer the way that I suffered. Or the process of teaching, you're going to learn more and you'll get energy. And I don't know, I feel like I'm trying to, this
You
is like
know,
therapy for both of us right now.
one thing I see as a theme of what we're talking about, and that it just came to me, is like just the whole, like with deep work, one of the biggest takeaways, that Cal Newport one,
Yep.
just like the deep thinking is like a muscle, training your brain as a muscle to, and you're just not being distracted by other things. But then also the whole gratitude exercise, which they've statistically proven you're happier and better outlook on life. That's an exercise. That's like a muscle that you have to use. And just your whole complimenting, that's like another habit muscle type of thing you have to do. And even delegating, like that's another one that you have to keep strengthening over time. Like all of these best practices, it's not like someone just woke up one day and was like amazing at it. Like you have
Well,
to really focus at it.
I'll take another one more
All right,
podcasting.
that's true.
So because many times I fail, and I think we're getting there in our podcast right now. But one of my things is, I don't want to just, when I interview somebody, just follow what did you do? How'd you get here? How did you do this? Because that's just the arc. I want to find something interesting and unique that like is who they are and like understand that. And it has to do with how they've learned and grown beyond the CLE course. And so when today is my second podcast of the day, when I've done a lot of podcasts and I feel like they've gone well, I feel it carry over to my day job at Lawline. Like I had some meetings after some podcasts and someone's like, Steve, you're really sharp today. What's going on? And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh no, because when in the podcast, I'm listening so intently to what you're saying to try to respond to something that's just not generic. And I feel like that, what you said, it's like working out, it's strengthening your neurons, just like all those other things to listen to others. So, and that's what you do all day. Just to flip back to immigration for a second, tell me what it's like to run an immigration practice today. What are some of the things that I'm just curious, like it's an interesting world right now. And so what does that mean? How busy are you? Are you actually practicing or are you just managing too?
No, I'm actually practicing. Okay, honestly, I think about this occasionally. If I were to have what do you call it? Those reality TV show people where like followed me around, they probably wouldn't be able to keep up with all the insanity. But
I
like
have no doubt.
like this morning, I was supposed to have court in San Antonio, but on Friday, like at 4:30 p.m., luckily the judge looked at our motions and was able to do a change of venue. And so otherwise I was planning to just drive to San Antonio, which is 3 hours away, on Sunday night and be ready for an 8:30 on Monday. But thank goodness I got to a nice weekend to myself and my normal job. On Friday morning, give an example, one of my detained clients' wife calls me and she goes, "My husband was told, pick up your things, we're moving." And honestly, for a moment, my heart skipped a beat because listening to all the news about Guantanamo Bay and Panama, I was just like, what? And then I called the ICE officers, I called a whole bunch, I emailed some attorney friends. I was like, and ended up he was just being relocated to another room in the detention facility. But of course, it was a mini heart attack, just making sure. Let's see, we're having a lot of calls by and consults with Venezuelans because the Biden administration said they were going to extend their temporary protected status, and then Trump did a about face like following week. And so a lot of people are about to lose their status in a short amount of time. I'm doing consults on a regular basis, reviewing basically my law firm job is consults, which is really deep into the getting to know the client and building up a strategy and offering a plan. High level business development. Even this week alone, I have a speech almost every day. Tonight, I'm talking to a Turkish community. Tomorrow, I forgot what I'm doing. I have a law class and I think 2 podcast recordings. Wednesday, I'm talking to immigration attorneys about immigration court. Thursday, I'm talking to dreamers who are in tech. Friday, I'm talking to construction workers. I think, and then Saturday, I get to run a birthday party with 17 little 12-year-olds. So hopefully, I don't know if I'll have any energy left for Saturday, but I have to. But we're doing a lot of Know Your Rights presentations because a lot of the nonprofits lost their funding and they're not able to do it. And so this is a way we're getting information out there. I also do a lot of videos that gets turned into TikToks, YouTubes, Instagram, Facebook, and webinars. So that's where the high level business development and informing the community. And then what else? Businessy stuff like taxes and hiring and stuff like that. But I do have a really good team, so they help support and do a lot of the things. So that's basically what I do a lot in the law firm job. So.
I feel like I just unlocked the key, and that's the Ruby I wanted to talk to.
Okay.
No, I wanted to get past like the interview stage and just like talk, because you didn't even mention, like you mentioned podcasts, but like that is a full plate. And on top of that's not even the thinking, learning, and teaching component. That's like the day job of what you're doing. And I guess every day you're speaking out there. But just to stick on immigration for a second, I assume you're busier than you've ever been right now.
About 2 weeks ago, we had our best consult/revenue week of our entire 15 years. And we're probably going to keep in that space just because of the volume and a lot of people who originally were on the fence because they didn't have a tight deadline and they were like, oh, I don't know, I'll think about it. Like those people are in gear. The people who were abruptly told their status is about to expire, like the Venezuelan TPS, for example, those people are in gear. And then the people are just like afraid of a lot of other things. Those people are geared up as well. Yeah, it's normally the busy season, but it's a little bit off the rails, a little bit more than normal. And the other thing I do a lot of is asylum, and I did some Lawline asylum CLEs, and that one is pretty intense because it's a lot of traumatized clients, and we learn a lot of horrible things about what happened in their country, and try to present the best story. Which I think one of your podcasts was about like storytelling, or just the importance in litigation about you're presenting the story to be an
Yeah.
advocate for your client. And so I do a lot of that as well. And honestly, I was thinking like if my next life is just to write out a lot of stories that could become like, I don't know, movies or something from all the things I've heard. I guess that's what John Grisham did. He overheard stories where he had clients and then he just wrote books about those things.
God, everything you say, there's like a branch of which way do I go here? But I would say, I think I remember from one of the podcasts I heard that you were interviewed. I don't know if you were in therapy or coaching or some form or some sort of way so you can box up what you heard so you wouldn't take it back home with you. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
So my very first it was back at a nonprofit in Dallas. I was a law clerk in the summertime, and they just threw us in the deep end of talking with clients who had traumatic stories. And honestly, when I came home afterwards, I was like having vicarious trauma that I really didn't know how to handle. I was like, whoa. And what I've come to realize over time is that I have to have really good boundaries as to they're better with me than without me. I didn't bring this upon them. I'm trying to guide them along. I can't help everybody. I have to say some of these mantras to myself, and I have to teach my team about this. Um, I even had a mentor tell me, she's Ruby, I can't believe how much asylum you do because I have to keep my boundaries because it's too much. And you can get very vicarious PTSD and trauma, and you can also get burnt out from it too. But anyway, I do therapy just like therapists have therapists. And then I also started doing energy and Reiki and treatment because I wanted to be able to figure out a way that I could still use my expertise to help people and not just say, oh, I'm burnt out, I'm not going to do it anymore, but find a way to be able to continue doing this work on a sustainable basis, as well as teach my team and find ways to help them as well.
Thank you for sharing that because that really is, you do impactful work. And I truly mean that because you have a business, you have literally a separate business on top of your immigration practice, which is to power up your practice. You have a beautiful second website and you have a podcast and you have all this content around that. I don't know, and I get it because that's what I'm doing. And there's a part of me is, oh, wow, if I could do that full time, if I could impact a million entrepreneurs and do that, that's the dream. Do you live in that world a little bit too? But because, or is it, yes.
Even this morning, when my Reiki instructor helped walk me through like a Reiki session and like meditation, because she knows what I've been going through a lot this last month or so, I just thought that's like how I see myself when I'm helping law practice management consulting. Because if she's helping me stay the course and do what I do as an immigration practitioner, and I can help other people stay the course as in law practice management, like even just it might be a little tweak, like, oh, you need to change this, or oh, have you thought about that? But it could make an impact on how they represent their clients and how they have better work-life balance and how they maybe can be more profitable, then that's being able to expand my reach and help improve people's lives. And so that I do see it like that. It's a little crazy because I do have, it seems like two verticals. I have the immigration space,
Not crazy.
and I guess it just comes in that whole serial entrepreneur space.
Well, it's not even that. It's if you build a software for your company, if you have, I knew somebody as an example, that motorcycle safety school, in-person school. They built a software for their school so it's easier to manage everything. They ended up building a bigger business selling that software to other online schools than the school itself because that's something they built for themselves. So it's very common to have it as a niche specific thing and build a system or learn from that and try to build it out from there. So don't like, you're not alone in especially as an entrepreneur who builds that. So I get it. It makes a ton of sense. So were you saying that, is that the dream to at some point, if things aligned, to not, because I can see how immigration is so impactful, but it is not, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It takes a lot out of it, just takes a lot, where the other one is like the bucket filling, where it
Yeah.
constantly gives. And I didn't know if you would love to in a certain time period switch over to that full time if things made sense, or at least have your practice run on its own.
Yeah, it's more of the long-term plan, that the law practice management aspect, the courses, masterminds, podcasts, recording, what I'm teaching, all of that could is more consulting is more of a long term, and the immigration maybe of counsel build up the firm and be a part of that conversation. But I I've said this in private conversation, I will just say it right now. I feel like the way immigration is right now, if those doctors in MASH when they're on the battlefield and they're experts and they're needed at that moment. That's the way I feel like as an immigration attorney right now. I can't just go decide to be a florist or give up on what I've been doing this whole 16 plus years. Like people need me more than ever and I need to stay the course because there actually isn't there's been some huge gaps in education where a lot of practitioners haven't learned immigration court or detained work. And that's another subspec interest of mine is how do we build up that pipeline of attorneys who will do this line of work. But and so I see myself like I'm running like a law school within my own law firm and teaching people like how to do things. And I see myself in that space, even in the community, and just helping us in these times of need. Yeah, but I like having the flexibility. You roll with it, and it just seems that my career is so political that it just gets a little frustrating when it depends on who's president and how they're going to make my life be,
Yeah.
for those 4 to 8 years.
One, thank you for sharing that again. MASH, I don't know, maybe it depends on when you were born, if you understand that reference. But I think another reference is COVID, being a doctor during COVID, right?
Okay,
Like
yeah.
you're on the front lines. And I totally understand that and respect that, because like it's now more than ever your expertise of what you've been spending 16 years. It's more works more than ever. You said you have about 20 people. How many attorneys are at your firm?
Well, three.
So most of it is the support staff
Yeah, we've been able to leverage technology and support staff to the fullest ability. And honestly, one of the things I was trying to find was a Spanish speaking immigration court knowledgeable attorney, but I couldn't find one. And so we just had to keep leveraging all the assistants and law clerks and the existing attorneys that we had to be able to do that.
that is very surprising.
What
That's surprising
is surprising?
that
No,
you couldn't find that
no,
person.
I'm in Houston. There's a lot of bilingual
Yeah.
people. It's just that there was a time when court was down and during the pandemic. And then also I think in the law schools and the pandemic, and I think some of the law schools didn't teach this and then people didn't learn it. It's somehow we have a void. We have a void of people who know how to do this work.
Got it. Okay. In the in the past, the last few minutes for at least this, I have two more topics real quick to go on.
Sure.
One, we've talked about Lawline a little bit that you've taught over the years, and right now there's 13 active courses. Can you take us let me ask you this. What's it been like? And honestly, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's it been like, the experience of teaching with Lawline, from preparing to teach to actually the process to any feedback you got? I'm always curious on how we do in that process and how we can improve, and just how it's been for you and why you've done it for so long.
I think I started doing it because I don't know exactly how I got started doing it, but when I was in Dubai, I recorded several, I believe, and I think on like provision on waivers or something, like it was like a special niche that I was doing a lot of at the time. And it felt great to be able to contribute and do it even though I was in another country because I know there was a time when you could only record if you came in your studio or something. And I was like, I'm not always in New York. One time I had a New Jersey office and I like timed it so I could record while I was there. But there was a period of time where I couldn't record because I didn't come to New York. But I think I enjoyed like the exercise, like the muscle of coming together with a title, description, content. And I've been doing this for other CLE, like with the American Immigration Lawyers Association and other state bar. And so it just became natural to me. But I enjoyed the preparing and getting a different audience because when I spoke to Lawline, it seemed like it would be different people that I didn't normally speak to when I was at some of the other audiences. But I do also like that you have the rating process and you get the feedback and those quarterly reports and things like that. That helps. And every once in a while I do get like an email from someone and they'll say, I watched you on Lawline, that was awesome. And then here's a question. Or so that's
Yeah.
been great to expand my reach in that space and grow as a presenter because it also is quite interesting when you're doing this because you're basically just talking to conceivably yourself. And so you have to be engaging or have a lot of energy to have fun talking for an hour without a lot of feedback. Because sometimes you'll get those questions throughout, but sometimes you won't, or maybe you'll hold them off to the end. But I think by having done this so much with you all, like it's helped me in other spaces and in avenues that I've done it. And it's been great. So I'm grateful for the opportunity.
No, it's a great point because they're speaking to a computer versus speaking in a room of 150 people are two completely different experiences. But to your point, it's like training for that. Like it's just the process of preparing materials and knowing that you will see the feedback and you will be online and you can share that. Is there anything that we can do since you're so experienced with us to improve the process for you as a faculty member?
I can't think of anything. I know I do get inspired with really great ideas with my PowerPoints at the very end. I'll turn something in and then I'll keep working on it. But no, I can't think of anything. It is nice to see that those reviews and the feedback. And I don't know if you're only choosing the good ones, that I get to see afterwards.
I'm,
But
I'm
no,
not sure how they do it today, but sometimes there's some people are really nasty and we make sure like,
oh,
it's just not helpful. Like just not, that
oh,
doesn't happen often, but certainly I know there's a process involved there.
yeah, it's very reassuring when you get a lot of positive feedback. Like even one of them on my asylum one, it's got a 5 stars out of 702 ratings. I'm like, darn,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to
That
go rewatch that and see how why I
one of
was.
the things I've been toying around with is taking AI,
Mhm.
going through all the reviews, and I'll try it with your course actually if you want. Go through all the negative and positive because I don't know if we send all of them, and then sharing what the themes are.
Mm.
Because you actually learn more than from that than the description, especially as
Mhm.
a consumer, but even as a faculty member. And we haven't done it on. There's just so many ideas I have similar to you, but like
Yeah.
the question is always, okay, once now what you do it? What are you going to do with this stuff? And but I do see there's some interesting things there because we have so many reviews. There's so much to do there. Last question, and I feel like I did somewhat justice here. I wish I could have gotten so much. There's so much more to get from you, but we can continue this further. But I have to respect your time because I know you have a full-time job. We mentioned some books. Is there any books that we haven't mentioned that you would love to share with other people to get value from? Oh wow, that looks scary. What is that?
Oh, this is my
Oh my
book.
God, that's your book?
Oh yeah.
That is so big.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty
Did you
all-encompassing.
self-publish that one or that one's
Yeah. Yeah. This one I did.
wow. Good for you.
Yeah,
Now I
it's
know why. I was gonna ask you why it's $100, but now I know. It's
yeah, it's
huge.
713 pages.
I'm so impressed. Wow. Is there a list of all the books that you're
I think I do have it in the back. Yeah.
you it was in one of the podcasts too, but just anything top of mind. Is there anything top of mind?
I love the success principles of the millionaire mind. I like the
You
Jack
mentioned that, yeah.
Canfield. I think his book was also
This is Jack Canfield is the success principles, how to
yeah,
get from where you want to be to how to get from where you are to where you want to be. That's one of my top 3 books of all time. So
yeah.
it's one of your top books too. That's good
Yeah,
to
it's a
know.
top because you can just keep learning from that.
Yeah.
And you can just,
Have you listened to that one on Audible?
no, I haven't.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Transformative moment for you.
really?
Because he's reading it.
Oh, it's
It
him?
is, it is unbelievable. So if you have,
Other ones are like the growth mindset with Carol Dweck,
yeah, sure.
Myth Revisited. Getting Things Done was good about framework of
Yeah.
influence, the psychology of persuasion. First things, the Stephen Covey is good.
Dysfunction of a team.
Let's see, what else? Yeah, I like already mentioned Deep Work. I love, traction. I know
Let
that.
me ask you this. What's the book have you read most recently? If
I'm loving The Wealthy Gardener.
that
I
one, I don't know. Okay. What's that?
think he's still published like
Like,
seven.
oh, it's like planting versus something
No,
like
no,
seeding.
no. It's actually like a little bit of a parable. It's about business and it's about finance and management. And it's a wealthy gardener's perspective, but there's like some plant themes, which I like gardening.
Got it.
So it's really good. I'm reading like I'm in the finance section of books right now. And so that was one that a friend suggested. So I'm forcing myself to listen to a lot of those right now. Yeah. I
Any
mean,
podcasts that you listen to regularly?
necessarily. I think I rotate around some of my friends' ones, but not
Okay.
necessarily one that you know what I've done?
Okay.
Like just whenever I do have a moment, I like just enjoy quiet because
Yeah,
I don't get that.
totally. And meditation is a really great way to, or even just silence is a good way to kind of get
Yeah.
through. Are you going to write another book? If so, do you know what it's going to be about?
My family will probably disown me if it's anytime soon because they were a lot of effort for them to sacrifice me away from them.
I will. I'm going to buy your book,
Okay,
and
great.
I'm going
I'll
to
buy
have
your
it
book
here,
too.
at least for working out purposes.
Yeah, I think it's a couple pounds, right? A
So
few of them to get something out of it.
I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate you taking the time to share some of what is going on. And when you got really something about what you said about MASH
Uh-huh.
and how you focus on that, there's something there that really resonated with who you, not just in this moment, but with who you are as a person. Like you can juggle substantive material, like what you're doing with immigration, on top of the other stuff that you are also substantive, but like the soft skills, not leadership and growth and practice management. And it's a rare skill to be able to do both very effectively, from organization to networking to reading to writing to running a practice to finding time to do podcasts. It's just recognize it's rare. And I said again, but recognize it's rare and just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll look back and you'll never, in 10 years, you'll look back and be like, wow, that I was really in it, especially during the MASH and during what's going on right now. So thanks for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for building up Lawline and having these opportunity for learning and the podcast and putting a premium on the importance of lawyers who learn. And I really will take away, read your book and check out that other one, the one about the bucket. And I really like that, the compliment idea. I should incorporate that into my habits and just my like style. But no, I definitely think as lawyers, depending on why we got into what we were doing, it's like a calling and truly are advocates. And that's what I see myself in this space. And yeah, I'll keep up the good work and know that it's important in people's lives.
Awesome. And I hope to see you in April if I can change my schedule. But if not, I know you'll do a great job in both your talks.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. ABA Tech Show, April 2nd to 5th at the McCormick in Chicago. Definitely people should take a look at a lot of great content. And yeah, my podcast, Power Up Your Practice, and book Power Up Your Practice on Amazon. So love to stay in touch if anyone wants to connect with me. Ruby Powers on LinkedIn or any other way. So feel free to stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.